The mood in the camp.
2 hangovers and a grin.
You what?
2 hangovers and a grin.
Yeah, 2 hangovers and a grin. Yeah, I think pretty much as it has always been. You know, it's just minus Graham these days. I don't think there's any sort of dramatic change. I think as far as communication, it's obviously easier with 3 than it is with 4. I mean, that's just there's no rocket science to that. It's just easier to talk to 2 other people, or as 3 to make a decision than it is with 4 or 5 or 6, you know. I mean, it'd be even easier with 2.
It would be, wouldn't
just
it?
imagine how easy it would be with just 1.
Well, I think that was what happened to Graham.
Well, you know, I mean, it's not really. It's just there's this. I think so much kind of sort of stuff is invested in bands, and when they change, you know, it is obviously open to a lot of. What's the best word? Ambiguity, I think, you know, about why that has changed. But it has, and, you know, the music obviously must have changed a bit, and when we play live, it will obviously have changed. There is absolutely no way that we could ever recreate the magic that we had as a 4-piece. But what we decided on the first day of recording was that we wouldn't just sort of give up, you know, and we just try and create a new kind of magic with 3 people, you know, and that's all we've attempted to do. You know, whether we've succeeded or not is entirely up to the.
Well, it wasn't clear whether Graham was going to be involved or not at the start of the process. We thought he might come in at some point, but then it just happened that it was started.
Well, I mean, what threw us was the fact that we started, and the first day, Alex, Dave and Damon turned up, but Graham didn't turn up, and, you know, we were given no warning of that. And then, you know, later that day we were informed that Graham wouldn't be around for a couple of months anyway, and it was a very difficult decision. It's like, do we just go home now today, or do we do something in the studio? And, you know, being kind of quite sort of optimistic, positive souls, we just sort of thought, oh, well, let's have a go, you know. And what happened is what always happens when you make a decision like that. You do it quite innocently, not thinking that it's a permanent decision that you've made. But we just started recording, and it sounded great.
It just happened really quickly.
It just sounded great immediately, and it was like, well, you know, if this is the way it is, then this is the way we've got to deal with it, you know.
So there was never a question of, oh my God, it's all over.
No, it wasn't. And when Graham actually returned, it was it just didn't work as a 4-piece anymore, and it was as simple as that. There's absolutely no one was sacked. No, there was no nothing like that. You know, it was just that it didn't work anymore, and the spirit of Blur was more important than the individuals. It could have happened to any one of us. You know, it's like, you know, the only reason you're in a band is to you've invested so much in the spirit of being something, you know, and you've got that kind of residual memory of all those gigs and all of that amazing love that you've been given over the years, and that's more important actually than any of you. That's the reason why people love bands, is because they sense that willingness amongst the people in that whatever band it is to just forget themselves and just be at one with what they've created. So I think that's really the answer. We like each other a lot, and we have an enormous history together, and obviously very loyal to each other. But at the same time, we're all the aspects of, we know each other far too well to be totally blissfully, you know, in love, because we're not. I mean, you know, we've revealed our unpleasantness to each other far too often for that to be even possible, you know. But when we're actually really making music, we're very happy together, you know, and you know, and you know, I'm turning into the Graham fan club here, but you know, that's how it always was, and you know, it is to this day ridiculous that he's not here. It really is stupid, and it's but basically Graham can't deal with the promotional and the intense scrutiny and emotional sort of demands of being in a professional situation. You know, I mean, it's got nothing to do with making music together.
Yeah,
but you know, he made a decision. I totally respect him for that decision. He did not want to be part of it anymore. But for me, I'm in it for life. I can't leave. I can't ever, you know, do anything else. I'm totally and utterly committed to making the best music and trying to do something that has some kind of effect and makes some kind of difference. So I can't leave, even if I wanted to. And, you know, and I feel like, well, mate, you know, it's all right for you. You can walk away. I can't walk away.
It wasn't clear whether or not it was going to work. I mean, we did take a risk. The safe option would have been to have gone home and hung around and waited some more. So it wasn't at all clear whether it was going to work. But immediately we started recording, it was clear then that it was going to work. At the end of day one, it was pretty clear that it was going to work.
Things started happening really quickly, and we did a couple of weeks in the studio and basically did at least one new thing every day. So we had like 15 starting points at the end of a fortnight. And at that point, we had no idea what was going to happen next. Certainly no idea that it was going to be a year-long epic voyage that took in Morocco and Devon and all kinds of crazy noises. But it was all really exciting. We were all pulling in the same direction. You need to find new reasons to make music. Things have to keep changing, and there was something that had obviously changed quite substantially, like the number of people involved just sort of naturally sent the thing off in another direction.
Well, yeah, there was no when we started doing tunes, there was just no guitar. It was just, you know, bass and drums. So they're inevitably the songs have a stronger focus on those two elements. I think you first suggested that, didn't you, Alex?
It seemed to sum everything up. I don't think you should say why things are called things. I think they should sort of evoke something. It's, you know, I wouldn't... Whatever it means to you, isn't it? Always with titles, you know, I wouldn't disagree.
But it's two words. It's definitely two words. It's think and tank. It's not one word. It
just seemed to draw together a bunch of themes that the album was talking about. It was one of those suggestions that immediately kind of clicked in everyone's heads, and that's your subconscious telling you that that's the one you should be going with. Names are appallingly difficult to come up with, and we always do it at we usually do it at the very last moment.
I think, well, we played with kind of the idea of Dark Life, but, you know, actually, we were off the mark. It should have been Difficult Life. So, think tank is better.
I think
no one's going to call their record Difficult Life, are they?
If we called it Dark Life, we'd have regretted it for the rest of our lives. I think. So there's nothing.
But it is funny.
Nothing worse than puns coming back to haunt you.
Unfortunately, I can't fucking play live like that. So, you know, I just wish I had that ability to be able to play and sing, and I can't. And it will be till my dying day the bane of my life that I can't do exactly what I can do. You know, so I will always feel, you know, insecure and slightly uncomfortable with what I do, because what I do is something that, you know, I do a lot, but it's very hard to quantify exactly and demonstrate what I do, because it's also chaotic. I'm a very chaotic person. But, you know, that's what, you know, you have to sort of just accept what you are, you know. But it is a very frustrating thing for me that I can't perform as well as I can in the studio live.
When you're in a studio, you might spend like a couple of hours doing a guitar part and doing three different guitar parts. You know, you need six hands to do that live, and if you're trying to sing as well, then you've got your work cut out. So what it's meant is that it's quite a big band we've got to perform this album.
9 people.
Yeah, I mean, but Graham bionically reconstructed is basically 3 backing singers, a percussionist and a guitar player, and Damon playing a bit of rhythm guitar as well.
We did consciously...
Kind of. I think now it's just, I think live it's just a much, there's 9 people in the band, and that has been put together as a result of the music we made in the studio, but... I think what time has taught me, especially having worked with lots of other musicians, is that when you're on stage, everybody is in the same boat, and you can't sort of separate anyone, you're actually all equal on stage.
Absolutely.
I mean, that is so important. When I make music, it's because it's the love of working with people, not about being the centre of attention. It's like, all the people that make that possible for you to even go on the stage, all the people that make it possible for you to go to that venue, all the people that sell the tickets, or it is an enormous kind of collection of individual talents and neurosis and everything that creates anything in this world. And it's sort of, unfortunately, it's we're at a point in our society where it's going to burst soon, the idea of celebrity, because it's just becoming almost impossible to be a celebrity, to be like that. It's a sickness. We invest unreasonable demands on people who are just the same as everybody else.
We all play in a band together because it's better than when we play it on our own. So, I mean...
oh, yeah,
that's not
absolutely.
True.
And it would be even better if Graham was there now, but he's not, so, we just have to kind of make do. But I mean, you cannot replace the magic of and the sort of insane kind of optimism of however many it is, but almost from school, playing with people and just suddenly ending up travelling around the world and having just ending up in front of 100,000 people, whatever, and something that you started basically at school. In between in your lunch break, and then suddenly there's 100. First time Graham and I played was at our school assembly in the morning at 9:30 in the morning. And I think what I'm saying is that you cannot. It's an unavoidable. The older you get, you just value what's happened to you, and you value it so much more than you do when you're young, and I think that applies to everything in life,
Well, there was one big kind of payoff from all of that, in that Damon learnt to play guitar in Marley.
A little bit. Come on, let's not.
You can play guitar. You
oh,
made
thanks, man.
You made a whole guitar album.
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't mean I can play guitar.
It's so that the style that he learned was the style that he needed to make music with the Malian musicians, and that carried on into this album.
Yeah,
I mean, one of the reasons why the guitar sounds so different and interesting.
Well, it's the only style which I can even vaguely say is something that is of my personality. If I was just otherwise I'd just be replicating what Graham does. And I can't do that because he's so much better at it and so much more committed to noisy guitar music than I am. I'm just not. It's not me. I love melodies, and guitar for me is just one of many instruments. It's not the predominant instrument. What makes something like Mozart and Stravinsky and the Beatles and James Brown and just wherever you mean, Tamani Diabate is the balance of stuff, It's the balance that's important, and that's why I have a problem with really loud guitar music, because I love loud guitars, but they has to be represented equally with everything else.
Well, it was just good to get out of the horrible provincial ghetto of kind of Western pop music, which is what a one-dimensional kind of nowhere space. Because the city's a massive time-wasting devices, aren't they? You can actually spend years in a city without doing anything at all, without realising it. But as soon as you sort of go to somewhere sort of rural where absolutely nothing's happening at all except what you make happen, you're suddenly sort of confronted with yourself and what you're doing.
When I first started doing Gorillaz, when I first started doing interviews for Gorillaz, which is like 2.5 years ago now, they said, "So what are you doing next?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to go to Baghdad. I want to record in Baghdad. Really, I really, 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 and I still want to do that. I'd still like to do the next Gorillaz record in Baghdad. I mean, obviously, circumstances probably won't allow that. But I think I just feel very, very strongly that there have to be people in the West trying to get to know and understand Arabic culture at the moment, because if that doesn't happen, we are heading towards a irretrievable moment in history, and I don't want that. I've got a kid. I don't want that, and maybe the initial impetus to even think about going to an Arabic country to record was that, but as with all things, once you actually get there, it's just about, do you like the people? Do you like the place? And yes, I love the people, and yes, I love the place, And as to coin a phrase from the record, there's nothing to be scared of over there at all. They're exactly the same as us. And if anyone tells you any different, they're lying. We're not teenagers, and I think if we get, even sort of the notion of being in the pop charts now has to have some sense of responsibility. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it whatsoever. And whether it's misguided or whatever, I don't care. It's just personally, I have to feel like that. Otherwise, I can't do it. I cannot do it anymore unless I feel there's some meaning to it. And not saying that we haven't felt there was some meaning to it in the past, because we've always felt like that. But I think now it's kind of sort of, they have to be more vocal about it, because it's essential for our identity to know that is the driving force. Oh God! What. Morocco, virtually every evening is perfect in Morocco, and looking back on it,
I went up on the bike one evening, and I cycled up to a hill that was in the distance. It was just sort of rising out of the plateau.
We all know that hill,
and and I watched the sun go down. And I looked around, and everyone had come out from the village to watch the sun go down as well. It was sort of like watching the news or something. Like it was that time of day. And that's what went on there.
I wrote the sun. Yeah, I wrote most of the lyrics under a cypress poplar tree in Morocco. So, everything was kind of sort of, jets are like comets at sunset is an image of the aeroplane and its exhaust fumes at sunset. They just have the light behind them, and they look like comets. It's so, and Caravan. It's like when you're looking at a desert every day and mountains, that sort of thing makes a lot of sense. That imagery. The trees are spitting oxygen. They're the rockets we should fear, because if we go and destroy them, then we will disappear. And it's sort of, that is a common theme through the whole thing. It's sort of, and that obviously is informed by at the time of writing it, the growing and impending aggression that was about to manifest and may have or may not have manifested itself when people hear this. So this is all about that, and what are you supposed to do as an artist other than express what's going on around you? Apart from Ben Hillier, who is basically a member of the band, really, and especially as far as this record was concerned, and William Orbit was as far as the last Blur record. And Norman was the only one. I mean, we tried to work with a lot of people, but Norman was the only one who actually hung out of us and actually sort of was part of, this kind of sort of notion of a gang, which obviously is not applicable when you're 35, but it's a nice idea.
To play football and stuff, didn't he?
He is a really, really talented producer, and he started off his career playing in a band, so he really understands the dynamics of a band, and he could immediately see a few things that weren't particularly obvious to us. Like he could immediately see with a couple of tracks that we needed to start again. We'd gone too far down a blind alley, and that's the kind of thing that we were looking for, really. We were looking for additional production rather than somebody to be a producer. And it often, if somebody has that kind of production talent that he has, they can just walk in and they can see immediately what needs to happen, and they can rescue you from kind of, disappearing down some cul-de-sac somewhere. And that's what he brought, really. There was a speculation at the time, as there always is when we try out a new producer, that we're going to end up making one of their records rather than they're going to help us make one of our records, which is preposterous, really. It shows an utter lack of understanding about the music making process. But he fitted in very well, and he's this enormous bundle of nervous energy, which is another thing we really kind of needed a shot in the arm at the time, especially in Marrakech, when the days were quite long and really involved Damon a lot. We all needed a bit of a kick up the arse to get us back making music in the studio together again. So that was really another quite important.
Well, I mean, by that point, it was pretty much just me,
And it was like a lyric writing and lyric recording, some band recording. But what Norman saw was that we all needed to be sitting down with our instruments and going over stuff again. That was what had kind of blocked us, was that we'd stopped doing that.
He's got a PhD in rhythm issues. So he's spent a long time studying rhythm, I think.
He's a great producer, and it's a very, very fine line.
You have to understand sound. You have to understand sound to be a good producer. So Ben, somebody else twiddling the knobs on your behalf. Ben is also is very technical, but he's also a musician, and that is for any aspiring producers, engineers, do your grade 8 if you can get that far. Concentrate that far, or just be a musician as well. Don't go into the music business as on the technical side alone. You'll never ever succeed properly. You'll never actually really understand what it is that you're doing unless you're also a musician. And being a musician is, as my granddad always told me, not about music but just about life. Is that 1% inspiration, 9% perspiration, and you will never ever ever become a good musician unless you practice all the time. When I was a kid, I was allowed to go and play the church organ in the village on a Saturday, which is brilliant, at Bach, and that's what I was supposed to be playing, but I was just totally freaked out being in the church on my own, and at the little sort of rear view mirror that the organist had, I was constantly looking at it, just thinking there might be a ghost or something in here, and I'd do about a minute of practice, and then the rest of the time I'd just be mucking about, just doing my own thing. I've always, I've never been able to fucking practice properly, so I very frustrating. I will probably die not being able to play with all the beautiful music that I could play if I'd practiced. So that's what I'm saying. Anyone who cares to listen, don't ever ever lose heart in practice, because it will take you to a wonderful place in the world if you can. But at the same time, don't lose sight of creativity and your own being an individual. It's that balance. That's all we're talking about, isn't it? Bloody balance. Yeah,
it is by a long way, I think. I mean, it was going to take some big changes to go on in our lives in order to make big changes on this record. And I think what with Graham and Marrakech, they kind of changed us in the ways that meant the music to change quite drastically as well. I mean,
there was 9 people in the band. That's and maybe we've got it wrong. Maybe it won't work. Very it's quite as likely to work as it is likely not to work. But the point is that we're aware of that.
That's one thing that we have learned on this album, is that it is important to make mistakes. It is important to get it wrong, and it's important not to worry about that too much. To be happy to make mistakes.
Exactly.
I mean, in the past, we've tended to see making a mistake as some kind of failure.
Yeah, that's not what defines you, is it? You have to keep the good bits.
It's got to keep a sense of humour about it all.
No, I mean, the only reason we're in a business is because we want to make a living out of what we do. But, none of us would be able to even, there are certain things which we just can't do. Whether that makes us more successful or less successful, we can't do them. So we have very clear parameters, and it's good to have parameters in a sort of volatile, sort of unreal business like the music business. Oh God, yes. It's all I mean,
I've actually brought the planned document with me.
The manifesto.
Yeah, it's making the most of chaos, really. Chaos is a brilliant thing because chaos has got everything in it, and all you have to do with chaos is just pick out the bits that really, it's like if you're a kid in a sweet shop. What do you go for? You go for the things that you really want, those penny sweets or whatever. You just go for, what you want, and that's what chaos is, and as a musician, I've always seen it like that. It's like I go for things that I really want, and I love them, and I try and, and eat them up.
Well, it's all about making decisions, isn't it? I think once you've decided to do anything, it's quite easy, or once you've worked out what you want in life, getting it's quite easy. It's just administration. Working out what you want's the hard thing.
It's difficult. It's difficult getting, as I think it is for anyone who has to, present themselves through the kind of the filter of the media. The hardest thing is just coming across as you are. That's the hardest thing. And if you actually care about what people think about you, which is sort of almost the worst thing you can be afflicted with if you're someone who is constantly in public eye, actually caring what people think about you, it's the last thing you want to do. So, yeah, that for me is the only difficult thing. Everything else is a joy.
The thing we're really good at is sitting down with our instruments. We're still really not 100% sure how you do the rest of it, so we do kind of muddle through, and but sitting down with our instruments, things just happen. We make records by turning up in the studio and sitting down with our instruments, and the record happens. Obviously there's a little more to it than that. Not quite giving
no that is totally right though. But it is right, it's totally right, and that's all it should be. Look, that's all it is. Music is only made at that moment by the people making it, whoever they are. It doesn't really matter who it is. It's just what happens when anyone is together. It's either good or it's bad, and we're blessed with being able to sit down together and actually be good.
I mean, God knows why we find that easy.
Who can sit down and make good music together. It's not.
If there's enough time, we can make a good record. But that isn't true of lots of the other aspects of being in a band. We still really haven't been able to distance ourselves from the criticism and the media and stuff, which is something you really need. After 10, 12 years, however long it is, It's something we really should have got a handle on.
I know. We've failed miserably in that way. We've failed miserably, and we see people like Coldplay who are so much better than we are handling the press. Radiohead, even Oasis are better than us. They know how to. They don't give a shit. Oasis are one level where they don't give a shit. Coldplay are the other extreme, and Radiohead, but they all seem to be able to handle it so much better than we do, and it's like, why are we so crap? Why? Because we're good musicians, we're good at what we do, and we have a value and a worth, but when it comes to actually presenting ourselves, we're terrible, and always have been, and will be. It's just, it's you just have to accept it, isn't it? Just basically shut up, get on with what you do, and stop moaning.
Does anybody read interviews with bands anymore?
I just look at the pictures.
Yeah, totally.
No, but it's almost that's immaterial. It's just how that reflection of yourself comes across. You either make a policy where you don't read any press whatsoever. But then again, if you don't read any press, then you shouldn't watch television. And if you don't watch television, God, what an amazing! I mean, William Orbit's on a news diet, isn't he? Where he whatever kind of person is advising him at this particular moment in time has recommended that he only watches the news once a week because it's killing him. The news is killing him. But there is a certain, you know what I mean? It's like, there is actually an extraordinarily good bit of advice.
How relevant am I in 2002? 2000, is that the time?
Oh, no. He does come out of them occasionally, doesn't he? Is that the time?
Well,
oh Lord,
you don't know until the record's made now, and I think it's a success. Whether the rest of the world agrees with me remains to be seen. But if if it helps you understand how you feel, then it's relevant. Ambulance is a really unusual track. Sonically, it's like a massive journey, really. I mean, we've probably made about 3 records, of which this is the latest kind of photocopy of it, because Ambulance started off as a very different way. I mean, pretty much all the tunes have a different genesis to what they are now. Yeah. And it's just we really, for the first time ever, and I don't know why that was, but we were never satisfied with something, and we were always prepared the next day to come in and try it again. And that's the first time that we've ever really done that, I think.
It was kind of languishing in the backwaters for a while, wasn't it? We started it, then left it for quite a long time.
I can't remember how it actually started. I mean, I know how it had the din, 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 and the harmonies and the vocal.
But it was the one where we slammed the door. We had that door slamming thing going on at the end for ages, and it was on the...
Oh, God, yeah, it had
it was on the demo CDs for a long time like that. And then we... It'd
be good to take all of those bits back.
Yeah.
And listen to them.
I still got it in the car.
It'll take you a year to listen to it all, though. That's the thing.
P.S. I started off... A lot of the tracks kind of went way out there and then got kind of reined back in again, and that was one of them. I mean, it's still
was like landing a pike. It's like, whoa, and then you've got to let it swim off again.
It screams out to be the first track on the record.
Yeah, it was always an opener. Like even like when it was a demo, before, wasn't it? It was like always the first thing.
And then when the bit at the end appeared, where it all just starts going Stevie Wonder, it started to sound like somebody in the back of an ambulance being rushed through a nightscape in a city, and it just sort of sounds like an ambulance to me. Well, it's a very perfect tune, and it's very simple, and there's not a lot going on it, and we've never actually put anything out that's that sort of stripped back. I mean, I can see how it could be very quickly reappropriated into a sort of a peace song, but it was actually written about being too busy and not having to spend, very domestic tune actually.
It's largely one take. It's one live take as well, I think.
Just everyone played really well first time, and
one of those one take wonders
when that happens.
It's always nice.
There's a lovely Moroccan orchestra as well, which kind of transported it absolutely somewhere else.
But the nice story of that was that we'd set them all up in our little house in Morocco, and they were all sort of just. They didn't even have their headphones on at the point when they were all sitting around, and sort of you didn't know whether they were playing with it or just doing their own thing. And we were in our little bit of a studio, and it was just like it started going, hang on. Either this is the biggest fluke in history, or they absolutely know what they're doing, and I don't know why I even bothered spending the last hour trying to explain to them. They weren't even in the same key or anything, and they just did it, and it just has this most ethereal effect on the overall sound of the tune, and I think it embodies this. Something which we were trying to get on this record perfectly, and so that's why it's our first, thing.
The gods are on your side. They really are on your side, aren't they?
It was odd because we tried to get them to play it properly to it afterwards, and it was nowhere near had that. It was just like a record playing and
computers, isn't it? Is that they only have to do it once, and
but you
the computer's always recording.
You have to learn to record. The only way with computers to make them really work for you is just to have them running all the time, and that's when they come into their own, because they are masters at picking up innuendo and subtlety around you.
It was around for a long, long time.
It used to be, and it had a. It started off with "Forget the Rock, we don't want to stop."
No.
Yes. And we had it. It was a very different kind of track, wasn't it? Totally. And then we added another bit to it, and then when we sent stuff to Norman, he picked up on the other bit, which was a very rocky bit, which was just a sort of coda to the disco tune that we'd written. And then he said, I don't like the way it goes, forget the rock. And the lyric I'd written at that point was, I love to feel that crazy beat. And so he said, well, why don't you try it, So we started again with my little voice changer and just went crazy beat.
It's kind of like that kid's magic trick where you say, think of a number, multiply by 2, add 4, divide by 2 and take away the bit number you first thought of. You know what I mean?
Ended up with a 1.
It's important if we're going to, retain any vestiges of sort of rock credibility, that we have a few rock, heavy tracks. Otherwise, we're out of there, aren't we? Really, we're not allowed back in the club.
We've got no rock, we just roll. And who wants to just roll?
Good song.
That was very easy, wasn't it? The whole.
It was.
thing.
Used to be called De La Soul. Right up until the end, it was called De La Soul. And then my girlfriend, one day when she walked into the studio, she put, we had De La Soul on it, and she put You Wish. Exactly. No, it was just that feeling it had. It had a feeling that reminded us of the first De La Soul album. It had the lull of it. It was very natural. It was taken off a demo, the guitar riff of mine, and then it was really easy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you can do that now, you can go, well, what's really working on this demo is the guitar, and then you can just nick the guitar off the demo and use it as a starting point.
It was one of the, I mean, it's just so nice when you have a tune that it's very difficult to go anywhere else with it than where it's telling you to go.
It's one of those ones that the more you take off it, the better it sounds.
Yeah, I like that track. It's actually got my young cousin who did the drums on that to start off with, because we were just not because it, as I was saying, back to our earlier policy of if in your studio, then something's made. And it just had something that we wouldn't necessarily have kind of gone with initially, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we just sort of...
very different to how
but now it's like seeing Dave play that live is... Because it's got a real sort of cut-up bass drum.
Which is my debut on guitar as well.
Yeah.
My first and last guitar performance.
So it's it's a song about... I think I sort of started mucking around with it in the studio after being out too late one night. When I go out, I have a good night, and the rest of the time I am as good as gold. But that inevitably, it's not as simple as that. So, and then that song is just an apology to my wonderful partner, and it's a sort of, what is the most pathetic excuse you could ever think of? And on the way to the club, I fell down a hole. Took me hours and hours to get out of that hole.
How did that go down, by the way? I've never.
Oh no, she noticed it. Yeah,
good. Good to remember that one, kids.
That was one of the first things that we started with, and all we had was brothers and sisters.
It was a lot dirtier, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was more sort of Spaceman 3 than kind of Grandmaster Flash, which is what it kind of ended up a bit like. Yeah, just had that mantra, really. Brothers and sisters, rebuild your life, we're all drug takers, give me something tonight. I think we went back to, actually, on this record, a lot of our earlier influences. That early 80s kind of sort of groovy experiments with black music, but keeping the sort of the line with the sort of art punky tip that we...
Zipping up our boots.
It is the idea of different things crossing each other's path and trading or exchanging ideas, which would link to Think Tank. But Caravan is the lyric is I've got a family. The caravan came back for me. A lot of this record is preoccupied with being totally lost, either in a desert or at sea or up a mountain or, up your own arse or whatever, and something coming back and saving you. It's about it is a degree of redemption and growing up about this record. So all the themes are related to that, definitely.
I remember recording the vocal to this sitting on the roof of the studio, and it's just like a perfect sunset, perfect recording studio moment. It took 2 minutes to write and a minute and a half to record. Yeah.
We got it all done in about 3 minutes. The whole process was from beginning to end. It's great. And if you make a mistake, it's over before you even realise that you'd made it.
Well, that was one that we started recording simply because the equipment hadn't arrived in Morocco and we were there. So we just started on whatever we had lying around, which happened to be a couple of guitars, acoustic guitars, and some cardboard boxes and a couple of jingles and one laptop computer. Yeah, that's why it kind of sounds the way it does, because it was started out on kind of odd set of instruments.
Yeah, because it's a really joyful song, but it's kind of, the lyrics are about extinction. So we kind of the Moroccan people's revolutionary bowls club. Don't worry, we're okay.
It's a fluffy one, but you can have one. You can have one fluffy one.
Yeah, I mean, that's killed me a few times. I know it's killed you a few times. It's a killer. It's just a killer. It took a long time to get it right.
Yeah, that was a sort of
we did go over
dance. You could dance to it at one point.
Yeah, it's gone through a lot of bad versions, and that was the one. That was the one that Farrell was going to work on because he thought it was a killer tune, and he said, "If you get that right, you've got a number one round the world." But and it was like, when I'm ready in October. Okay, well, we're kind of nearly there, and then we just did it ourselves, and we just thought, could have been really great to work together, but we've done it. We're happy with it the way we've done it. So, difficult decision, when you've been, could have been really. Yeah, it's just a very sweet sweet song.
That's all you're after, isn't it?
Yeah,
that feeling.
Little moments like that. But I mean, I won't tell word of a lie how I started writing it. Sitting in the studio, waiting for everyone to turn up. Dazed and Confused front cover on the wall, because we had them framed, or if there was just happened to be one of Graham on the wall, and I wrote it looking at it. You know, definitely was inspired by Graham and missing him, and you know. Kind of the end.
Got to keep that one on a
yeah, well, you know, it's all right. You can say it's a jazz Odyssey in the end, but you know that was recorded about 3 o'clock in the morning. It's a thing that I kind of sort of noticed in Morocco, that at sunset when the planes were flying over, they looked like burning balls, just, and we were all pretty wired, and it was quite an intense moment. We just did that one take. You know, I said, give it a Charlie Parker vibe. And he's our mate, and you know, he's not like a session musician or anything. He's like, you know, very close to the band musically, and he just went in there and did it. And you know, we've actually edited it down from it's about half the length that it was.
Yeah, it did actually last all night. Saxophone solo.
So we're going to end. But I think we like it because it does. You do get to a point with it, and you did, especially when it was longer, where. You know, you can see people tangibly going, I want to get out of here. This has turned from a really enjoyable experience into a nightmare. And, you know, come on, man. We gave you Sweet Song than the song before. You know, you've got to give us a bit of freedom to... We know what I mean, though. Otherwise, it
is interesting watching people when they're listening to that
easy.
song, because they're not quite... They're never quite sure where it's going to go. And then all of a sudden, the sax comes in and they start looking at you.
You have to be a fan of bebop to like that, and if you're not, it's really difficult to get into it. It really is. But if you like bebop, you love it, because it is actually a really good bebop solo.
Well, it's the most simplistic thing we've ever done for the first half of it. You know, it's a really straightforward call and response Cro-Magnon thing. You know, it's very, very...
I mean, at one point, there was a point on this record where we had all these brilliant backing tracks, and I thought, fuck it, should we just give them to fucking, you know, Exhibit? Do you know what I mean? I mean, you could start that, it could be a brilliant, you know... There was a lot of fantastic, potentially groundbreaking hip-hop vibes going on, but, you know, believe me.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I think you can tell by listening to it.
Yeah, I mean, they're blatantly obvious, the tracks that Norman's worked on, because they've got, like, you know, they've got a sort of attention to a sort of clubby beat that some of the other tracks obviously don't have. But I think what we did totally unite on was the Clash, and it was like, you know, a very sad moment when a couple of months later Joe Strummer died, because I think it just meant, in our heads, it was just like, you know, it'd be nice to have a couple of tracks on the record which just say to all those people who we love, you know, we love you. The Clash sort of influence now is so much more sort of relevant than it was when we made it, if you know what I mean. Then it was just, we were in that vibe. We were in the desert. We had a train track like a couple of miles away from us. You know, we were in combat rock. That's where we were. We were in that place. So you couldn't avoid it, even if you wanted to. And also we were listening to Sandinista, you know, and combat rock as well. So that and we just felt very natural doing that. It's just such a shame that, you know, it's just a real shame. Joe Strummer is just, you know, really sad, really sad. And the orchestral element is Graham. That was his last swan song in Blur. Really, that was the one moment when we tried to repair everything and, you know, return to what we were. It was one take, really, wasn't it? It was just exactly I had the song on the piano, and we just sat around and did it, and it was like a bit upsetting. This really. So his guitar line is beautiful in it, you know, and it's, you know, but I think it's a very beautiful way to end, and it's the end as we were. So do you know what I mean? It's like we could have we could have hidden it or whatever, but no, it's just like, you know, that was a good moment, and I'm just very proud that was the last thing we did, all four of us together, you know.
Hello, I'm Alex James, and this is On the Way to the Club. Hello, I'm Alex off Blur, and this track's called Caravan. Hi, I'm Alex James from Blur, and this song's called Sweet Song. Hello, I'm Alex James, and this track is called Jets Are Like Comets at Sunset. I'm Alex James from Blur, and you're listening to tracks from Think Tank. Thank you very much.
Hello, this is Damon, Albarn, and the next track is Ambulance. Hello, this is Damon, Albarn, and the next track from the Blur album Think Tank is Ambulance. Hello, this is Damon, Albarn from Blur, and the next track is Out of Time. Hello, this is Damon, Albarn from Blur, and the next track is Crazy Beat. Hello, this is Damon, Albarn, and the next track is Good Song. Hello, this is Damon, Albarn, and the next track is Brothers and Sisters. Hello, this is Damon Albarn, and you're listening to tracks from Think Tank.
Hello, this is Dave from Out of Blur, and the next track you're listening to is We've Got a File on You. Hello, this is Dave from Out of Blur, and the next track you're listening to is Moroccan People's Revolutionary Bowls Club. Hello, this is Dave from Out of Blur, and the next track you're listening to is Gene by Gene. Hello, this is Dave from Out of Blur, and the next track you're listening to is Battery in Your Leg. Hi, this is Dave from Blur, and you're listening to tracks from our new album, Think Tank.